participate in this great prayer that you teach your servants in this land. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Are there any petitions? Any notices? Clerk.
Notice. The Minister for Transport and Civil Aviation gives notice that he shall present a bill for an act to amend the Civil Aviation Act 2000.
Question without notice, 45 minutes. Honourable Member Sungwa. Oh, sorry. Wawaria.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Assistant Speaker. Lo look sao lo people belong Wawaria this morning. My question without notice is directed to the Minister of Mining. I have several questions that will be for him, and I wish that he could answer. Honorable Anopala, Member for Rico and Minister for Mining. My questions, Mr. Speaker, are very important, so please allow me to give a background to these questions. Mr. Speaker, my office was presented with a petition by the Morobe Goldfields Small Scale Miners Association, which is mostly comprised of mining leases and alluvial mining leaseholders from Bulolo and Wawaria district. Mr. Speaker, this petition was also addressed to the good minister as well as the member for Bulolo, Honorable Sam Basil Jr., and the good governor of Morobe, Honorable Luther Wenge, and to the managing director for MRA and the head of Department of Mining. Mr. Speaker, from my perusal of the petition, it is alleged that there is abuse of exploration licenses by the holders in the Wawaria and Bulolo areas. These abuses are perpetrated because of there is a legal leeway that is given to the exploration license holders. Almost 80% of our small-scale miners in Wawaria and Bulolo districts are unable to apply for or renew their mining leases because under the Act, the exploration license holder has the power to object to these applications. Thus, the small-scale mining applicants for leases are forced to come to terms with the exploration license holder or lose out. Mr. Speaker, according to the petition, the small miners in Bulolo generates close to 300 to 400 million annually. In totality in this country, we are looking at over 1 billion annual generation from the alluvial mining industry. Mr. Speaker, the petition raises 5 main contentions. Firstly, the current exploration license holders are not undertaking exploration activities as prescribed and have failed to meet the approved programs, but have allowed to hold the exploration license for longer periods than the 2 years prescribed by law. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, the exploration license holders in the name of exploration are going out and beyond the areas covered by the exploration license and are collecting samples. The exploration license holders are going into wildlife management areas that they may not be covered by the exploration license. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, the current exploration license holders have held the exploration license for a very long period of time with or without renewal. Whichever the case it may be, but it appears that the exploration license holders are using the exploration license to mine, buy and sell gold, because the exploration license holders have the power to object to an application for renewal applications for renewal of an alluvial mining lease. The exploration license holders are taking full advantage and are pressuring the local alluvial miners to sell gold to them. The exploration license holders are forcing alluvial applicants to pay 500 kina and agreed to sell gold to them. That was one of the issues raised in the petition. Mr. Speaker, warden hearings, fourthly, the warden hearings for exploration licenses have not been held and are not held in the certain central areas. Finally, Mr. Speaker, it is believed that exploration license holders are not providing exploration reports to MRA within the given tenement period. Now to my questions, Mr. Speaker. My first question to the good minister is this. Why do we keep renewing exploration license for some entities who are not and are consistently failing to comply with the license conditions since the first 2 years of its grant? My second question, Mr. Speaker, to the good minister is, could the existing exploration license covering the areas of Mount Kaindi, Wau and Bulolo, areas of Wau Waria and Bulolo district be reviewed, and if warranted, relinquished and further not granted over these areas where local small-scale miners are intensely working and surviving, as the grant of exploration license will affect them? Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, my third question to the good minister is, can the minister stop granting any new exploration license to areas of Mount Kaindi, Wau, Bulolo, Wellis, and other areas in Wau Waria and Bulolo district where local small-scale miners are intensely booming, working and surveying, and the grant of exploration license will affect them? Mr. Speaker, I want to bring to your attention that Wau Waria and Bulolo since 1920s all come na exploring na digim goli go na all gara meat bun na gris now bun meat bun na blood or also all gara meat also bun also left enough this la house na Mr. Minister long mining put him stop long all gara exploration lo this areas losing more people blame me losing more legally people blame me mining this la all areas. I'm concerned blong all people, na concerned blong me. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, this regard to alluvial miners, can the good minister advise this House what is the status of the alluvial mining policy? Finally, and my last question to the minister is, could the minister also advise this House when is he planning to bring the Mining Act review to this floor of Parliament, because the people of Wau Waria and Bulolo wish to contribute to make some changes to this Mining Act. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. These are my questions.
Honorable Minister for Mining.
Thank you, Mr. Assistant Speaker, Acting Speaker. Thank you for this member for Bulolo Wau Waria for this very long, complex, and very substantive question. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member for this very important question, and I also want to thank him for giving me a copy of the question before he asked the question. So I'm a little bit prepared to answer his questions, but I want to thank him for giving me the opportunity to at least prepare myself to answer your question, because not only your people are listening, but the nation is also listening. Mr. Speaker, in relation to the member's first question, which is Why do we keep renewing the exploration licenses for some entities who are consistently failing to comply with the licensing conditions for the first 2 years of its grant? Mr. Speaker, unless the claims and the questions can be substantiated of abuse, the questions or no grants as tenements compliance are strictly monitored by MRA. Renewal of a tenement follows strict compliance checks by MRA and then cross-examined by MAC before recommendations are made to the Minister. The MRA would undertake independent due diligence should observations by people on the ground is contrary to the exploration license holders. Mr. Speaker, MRA is one of those organizations where the systems work very well. And I am really privileged to be part of that organization and be the minister for that organization. I'm comfortable with what they are doing, and I'm also very comfortable with the advice they are providing me. Mr. Speaker, in relation to the second question, could the existing explorations licenses cover in the areas of Mount Kanye, Wow Bulolo Valley, and other areas be reviewed and relinquished and further not granted over these areas? Minister, the current Act provides sufficiently for coexistence of alluvial mining licenses and exploration licenses. Alluvial mining licenses can exist within an EL and vice versa. Mining license for alluvial mining purposes can also coexist with ELs, provided Section 38 is adhered to as explained previously. Section 38 of the Act is intentional as it protects the rights of the EL holder applying for and developing mineral resources within the EL it holds. It would have spent considerable amount of money exploring and identifying resource deposits within the area. It is understood some exploration and mining companies, due to their corporate policies, are reluctant to engage in mining licenses for alluvial purposes as provided by under Section 38. This may be an issue which the regulator should look into and may address through legislative changes. Mr. Speaker, in relation to the third question, which is can the minister stop granting any new exploration license to the area? Similar answers as provided for question 2. Beside the option of reserving a tenement grant is provided for under Section 7 of the Act. The mining minister can seek legal advice on whether Section 7 reservations can be utilized here to address the request. Mr. Speaker, in relation to the fourth question, which is what is the status of the alluvial mining policy? Mr. Speaker, the alluvial mining policy was introduced in the last Parliament and was launched during the 2021 Alluvial Mining Conference in Lae. It is now applicable throughout PNG. The Department of Mineral Policy and Geoasset Management has been doing awareness throughout the country on the alluvial mining policy, particularly in areas where the alluvial mining activities are prevalent. The most recent areas awareness was just last week from the 21 to the 25th November in Bulolo, Morobe province, where a large number of alluvial miners are congregated. It is an ongoing exercise. One of the key factors in the alluvial mining policy is that alluvial mining is now a reserved activity for Papua New Guineans only. All foreigners are barred from undertaking any alluvial mining activity in PNG. Only Papua New Guinea citizens can venture into business of alluvial mining and the export of alluvial gold out of Papua New Guinea. Mr. Speaker, in relation to the fifth and the last question, when am I planning to bring the amendment of the Mining Act to the floor of this Parliament? Let me remind you of the Prime Minister's inaugural speech after his election as Prime Minister in this Parliament. He sounded out a reminder to the mining, oil and gas sector that there will be a new regulatory regime for PNG mining, oil and gas sector in 2025 on PNG's 5th anniversary. In the meantime, a few necessary changes were recently introduced, one of which now makes it compulsory for all mines in PNG to transmit live data in real time from the point of extraction and at the point of shipment to the central hub. For the very first time, this gives greater visibility to the state to assess and value the exploitation of its mineral resources. This is an example of the many good initiatives that are being captured in the revised mining bill that will come before Parliament soon. And I will call upon both sides of the House to support the revised mining bill in the national interest. Thank you very much.
Supplementary, Governor for Morope.
Mr. Speaker, Assistant Speaker, I thank you for giving me the permission to ask a supplementary question to the Minister, relevant Minister, Minister for Mines. Minister for Mines, as you know and can accept now, you are a lawyer by profession, like me. Mr. Speaker, Section 5 of the Mining Act, Section 5 of the Mining Act gives exclusive ownership of minerals in this country to the state. Equally so, Section 6 of the Oil and Gas Act gives 100% ownership to the state. Now, by the custom of Papua New Guinea and my custom, everything on the land, on my land, as long as it's my land, everything inside the land, everything in the waters floating on my land, all of those things there, whether even I know it or I don't know it, by customary law, I own them. I own them. But that Section 5 deprives, I'm sure my custom is the same custom in some parts of Papua New Guinea. And customs are constitutional law, accepted by Section 9 of the, it's stipulated in Section 9 of the Constitution. Customary law is the law of this country. And Mr. Minister, I want to ask you whether there is any plan to make sure that you propose amendment to Section 5 of the Mining Act, because if you don't change that section, there is a complete deprivation of the traditional people who own the land and who own everything on the land, including the minerals of what kind and forms, all of those minerals. So, Mr. Minister, I'm asking you, is there any proposal, any policy to change that Section 5 or amend the Section 5? Because if you don't do, we're going to advance the Supreme Court reference on this point, because there's a breach of our constitutional right, more particularly the land customary rights.
Minister for Mining.
Thank you, Mr. Assistant Speaker. This is an important, both a political issue as well as a constitutional issue. We can discuss the political issue round and round until we are perhaps confused. But, Mr. Speaker, the legal issues are also intertwined with this, the political issues. So I am standing in this position where it is becoming very difficult for me to answer that question, because it is both a political as well as a constitutional issue. And as you know, we on the floor of this parliament are not supposed to express a legal opinion. We leave it to the hands of the state solicitor or the legal opinion provided from out there. I'm not in a position to express a legal opinion, Mr. Speaker.
Minister, sorry, another point of order. Governor for Morope.
With due respect to the Honourable Minister, with due respect to you, I am just proposing to you, is there any policy or any attempt to amend that section to accommodate the customary interest, particularly as to the ownership of the land in this country and ownership of minerals? That is a very simple question. You don't have to give me a 20 answers.
Mr. Mining.
Yeah, Mr. Assistant Speaker, at this stage there is no proposal before me to move in that direction. So until I get clear instructions on this issue, I will leave it at that, and we'll wait and see what happens and what comes before you, Governor, and what comes before me, and especially perhaps a direction from the Prime Minister to move in that direction. Thank you.
Point of order.
Yes, my point of order is this. This question has already been resolved, and I'm not proposing to give any legal advice, but I want to state it as an existing fact as distinguished from law, which is this. There was an amendment passed in 2013 to the Constitution that all minerals and petroleum in this country belong to the state. So that's probably the point that's alluded both my friends. So I state it as a matter of fact that the law has already been amended and it's in the Constitution. They need to look at that and take it forward from there.
Minister of Mining and up to the opposition leader. This is question time, and it's gone beyond the question time. So please, if you have any issue that you need to discuss, please we discuss outside, and then we can sort it out. But otherwise, it's question time.
Where one minister been answering question, now Prime Minister Sanaplo answering the same question. Now chair itok nogat. Now one Prime Minister Waklo answering question. Now you allowed another minister for explanation. Under the standing orders, that is not right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Leader for TVWAN opposition leader. I already ruled that question point of order out of order. They can discuss that outside. Any new questions? Honourable Member for Kairuku.
Assistant Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Lands and Deputy Prime Minister. Unfortunately, is out of the country on duty travel, so I will perhaps direct it to the Prime Minister. Mr. Assistant Speaker, my question relates to a portion of land, portion 406, which is also known as the Gabari Plain in Kairuku Electorate. Which now obviously is a state land after the state paid a hefty sum of 46.6 million for this portion of land from the previous title holder. My people of Kairuku would want to know what the position of the government is pertaining to this land area, as it is government policy now and encouraging all 22 provinces and the districts to go into establishing or running many economies to make up the national economy of the country.
my electorate people would want to know if the government is willing to offload or give back this land either to the Kairuku DDA or its business arms, or the central provincial government and its business arms for agriculture development. Thank you, Mr. Assistant Speaker.
Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Assistant Speaker. Let me thank the member for Kairuku for asking this question on the state land in and up there in his electorate in Central Province. Mr. Deputy Speaker, state land right throughout our country falls within the 3% that we have for state use. Kairuku District or Central Province state at the sub-national government level. If land, and they have a land use proposal that will come to us, then I don't see it as any offense for us not to pass the state land, whether it is that land in question or any other land to Kairuku District or Central or any other sub-national government district or provinces for that matter. The said land that he's discussing about, we were planning to relocate military. In fact, the previous government planned to relocate military base into that area, freeing up Mari Barracks, freeing up Taroma. But something that we will, in fact, this morning I had the privilege of meeting the governor for Central, discussing on Central provincial plans. And so some of these conversations would be done in totality, and we look at what could be relocated into Central Province to lift the burden and pressure of the nation's capital on some key important government institutions, not just necessarily Defence Force, but key government institutions, including our focus on expanding our large-scale agriculture, tourism, and other economic activities. So certainly, Mr. Assistant Speaker, if the Kairuku district feels that there is something they could do with the state land, as you know, the earlier transaction happened between State Department or agency or state-owned enterprise and a company that had lease over that land, that secured a lease through an earlier process where the normal lease process that Lands Department facilitates. That happened earlier. The land still remains a state land, and that land and all the other land that falls within the 3%. If government agencies has a plan to develop this, we certainly at the National Department of Lands and from central government or national government, we will not stand in the way of proper proposals, proper land use to take place in this limited land that we have right throughout our country. The budget that will come on later today will have an allocation on land expansion. I think it is about time we expand land from 3% to 4%, 5%, or do in a leaseback arrangement with our traditional title holders in a proper manner to unbundle the potentials we have in our country. For the first time, we're looking at lands and lands in a serious way as a government for those 3% land we have right across our country, including that parcel of land in the Kairuku electorate. If the member or the governor from the province has a plan for the land, we certainly are open to look at and work in partnership with them. It could be certainly passed back to them if national government has no utility for the land. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Mulbaya.
Thank you. Thank you, you look sour, people from Mulbaya, Assistant Speaker of the Parliament. First time, Mr. Nablia, so thank you. On behalf of my people, I would like to say thank you to the Prime Minister of the country, the Prime Minister of the country, ministers, opposition leader, and the members of the Parliament. Before me asking question from me. Me like to kengel all people from me. All magi me come in chair of floor of parliament, the 11th parliament of Papua New Guinea. Me to kengel people from Mul, people from Baya, na people from Musa. Thank you. Me like ask him one more question as well. You know, plenty question. Question him come to floor of parliament finish, but me like review him. Now ask him again. Question from me or same. Place from me, Mul Baya. Agricultural land. Mesem stop. Well fertile land. I think government imi lugulung and finish. Now me like to kengilong. This program will call him. Connect PNC. Me kemben or isla na mi win na mi kam. Now
Sorry, honorable member.
Connections.
Honorable member for Mulbaya, sorry, me interrupting you. You asking the question, Nikalusat.
Me like asking question and me explain question about me asking question
No,
of that man recording them away.
No,
Me like asking question golong minister blong defense.
Honorable member, you talk sa pastor man minister you asking questions, so I can explain.
Me direct him to the question, me but direct him golong minister for defense. Me like asking to the question golong minister for defense or same. Road link connect PNC. Blong Baya na Mendeng. Misawi penis palo tracking defense force working penis. Kam lo ramu penis, kam lo sogram na kam lo ramu riba penis. Baya gosem tu. Milak sabe. All mibur blong mul baya lumsa na Mendeng. All lak sabe. One of latest progress. Blow this the road. Defense make him go na stop or semonem. Because works minister put him, come out finish. Now put him in Chalong, program, connect PNC finish. No good. Defense force got narla ting na Department of Works got narla ting. Me lag him. YouTube la, enough. Sit down lo one round table na discuss past time there's a project, big project, bro you lo connect PNC. Enough bait la tok na table kam long. People blow mul baya lumsa na Mendeng. Na Minoramu. And Jimmy na connect Western Islands, na connect Island Solutions. Na coastal. Enough bait la make him some discussion or no cut. Me put him come to you. Narabla, number 2. Department of Works Minister. Write him. One la pass come to you finish. Me like sawe. You should discuss finish or no cut. Thank you, Assistant Speaker.
Minister for Defense.
Deputy Speaker. Morning, Lord Blogara. Good la Costel. Law Mulbaya. Thank you. Firstly, Mila talk thank you, Mulbaya making you first time come to Parliament. And also, Mila talk thank you, Tambu level people making you also second time long.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, this Baya Road, Kamlo Medeng, all been talked law this 2008 and 2008 and 2014. All been working scope work. And then by 2016 to 18, government PIP, all national planning, give him 10 million. From Baya, Kamla Shibai, Hayom. Okay, from the last September 30th, we fly along Baya, and then we come same law Simbai and Ayom Station, and we was stop on Ayom Station, where all machine, truck, all something where eventually work land. Now this la road, no road. Plenty in the country all misleading. This la road or same, one bla road, but mibla defense, mibla working pilot trading. Pilot trick and mibla working. Like 10 million. Like 2008, come 2014 to 15. 2014 to 16, we working scope, and 2016 to 19, we working 108 kilometers pilot track, and 38 kilometers, we working road. You think about 10 million, I'll give you 2 years, now we working this work. Now pilot track and come all the way to Meday, from Baya to Meday. Now we stop long Hayo. Deputy Speaker, as Lordista Parliament House, Mila Togam, government or some. These are people, I'm all needing this road. Also, what roads almost like kilometers come all the way long. Meday, Ayom, and then from Hayam, Wararamu, also Simbot come long, Ramu River. Come all the way along Middle Ramu, where Minister Education can take note of it. And more months of struggle up, Mr. Speaker. Yes, last time Minister Works and me talk, I'm writing one of us come to me, now I'm like seeing this work go along works. But me looking was me personally me work go along Bayang, and then Ayom and Simbai and me come Muslim lo Marang. So was me personally work also me Miran also na come. Mr. Speaker, government can give money more long. We got 88 million all been funding, all giving 10 million or so. We got outstanding about 70 million. So I was saying, give this 70 million. Me defense, me can finish it. Me no stop lo parliament na me talk. Me go long Ayam Simbai Madan. Me go lo Baya. On date 30th September. Me like government must give him this money. Now me like ready to work. Member for Mulbaya, me stop wanting you. Mil Ramu, member, me stop wanting you. Madam member, me stop wanting you. Mil Ramu, me stop wanting you. And me for you, me like working work. Me like money taso. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Nipakutubu.
Thank you, Assistant Speaker. Lord, give me time. Me, lo Nipakutubu, me blagat one of the best district hospitals. Question blow me sorry by me directing lo Minister of Health. This house sick will make him long 2014. Now I'll go give him over government. Law December 2020, provincial government gave him one block contract long one block company. I'll call him Green Telemed. Law set him up, now put him on medical equipment go this house sick. So as you miss our opinions all district hospitals, I'm on level 4 hospitals. But to this day, this equipment, housing, all no put him. So I've decided to do some investigation to find out. This company, Green Telemed, a Managan company, this money na emigo where. Now me find him out this company, Green Telemed. Me go check him IPA. And we got 2 employees, that's all. It's 100% owned by a company called Green Limited. Now, Green Limited is owned by 100% owned by one man, Bennett George. Now, he's an Indian person, not a national. The money we give him, we kiss him 4 million kina. And I've also found out that this company is registered as a local company. You may got Procurement Act, NPC Act 2018. I'm talking about many contract below 10 million kina must go to one local contractor, PNG companies. So it appears to me that this company has gone to register, a foreigner has registered a company as a local company to bypass our NPC laws. and he has not delivered on the contract. Me go check him PHIC of Lomi, Law Province. Now me talk with him, I want a copy of that contract so that I can go and check this contractor and find out whether he has delivered on what's in the contract. And to my surprise,
Sorry,
Mr. Assistant Speaker.
Honourable Member for Nipakutubu, lo standing orders and mitoko sem sa posila migi sambla comment you no kang kolin bro man magi reference lo sambla something way in a state to mas. So me ask him also na be withdraw him sambla name mo you talk minister na be withdraw him before you continue asking question. You go Minister of Health.
Thank you, Assistant Speaker. Me withdraw him all some names for me. Colin Pinis, per the standing orders. But is it okay with you? I can continue.
You go straight to your question to the minister.
Thank you. So my question is also on the point. Me like also put him to the floor is that this is the same company. Me check him long NDO it's approved list. This is the company I'm stable National Department of Health approved list. So, first question, Blamilo, Minister of Health and Muslim. How does a dodgy Twickenham company get its name as an approved NDOH vendor? There has been a lot of issues of corruption in the Department of Health Procurement Department. And I believe that this guy, a dodgy person, he's got his company listed on the NDOH approved list, and it's being pushed down, and my electorate and my hospital, district hospital, is a victim of something that's happening within NDOH. Can he go and check his department? I also checked on the FTI report. 95% of all the vendors in NDOH are foreigners. How does that happen? In this government, we want to take back PNG. How do we take back PNG if 95% or even 100% in all the SOEs, departments of this country, all the vendors are foreign companies, and some of them, most of them are not delivering to our people. So my question is, how does a Twickenham dodgy company get his name as a vendor in NDOH? And can he check the PHA? And we get this company to deliver my 4 million kina worth of medical equipment for Neighbor District Hospital. Thank you, Assistant Speaker.
Minister for Health.
Thank you, Assistant Speaker. Namitok, thank you long. Gupla member long Nipa Kutubu, Honorable Dr. Billy Joseph, will ask him this question. Our requirements were only put him long and list him all companies long, all approved companies long, supply more medical equipment or supply more all medicine long Department of Health. And something where Bami may block law still little go inside long now. Inside long 100-day plan where maybe put him aside them, maybe start look long all this la. Capability and capacity belong all these companies. One something you must understand, Mosem. Plenty or something where come up inside long Department of Health. Plenty or something and plenty or manually involved. Now, maybe I didn't want PAC report and start. Now, this la PAC report I think all table and finish. Now, our recommendations for this la PAC report. Now, actions all department and me taking finish, and me ask him all long present him. So they are doing a report now. The department is doing a report now, and I will present before this house the recommendations that have been made by PAC, and those ones that have been ticked off already. As we know, there's a lot of legacy issues. Now it's quite difficult to come down and pinpoint anyone and anything for that matter. It's a difficult process, but we'll get there. I want to assure the good member for Nipa Kutubu that the company that he mentioned and personalities involved, I think I will get back to him in writing. I will ask the Department of Health to look into this matter, and if that equipments have been procured already, we will provide a report. If they have not been procured, we will hold a company that has been awarded accountable. Now, speaking on that, I think, let me just touch a few things. For health department, it's as you all know, it's quite a big department because it encompasses a lot of things. Now, when it comes to procurement and all that, it's quite difficult when we have one national procurement commission that's dealing with all matters that are coming from everyone, all other government departments, so to speak. So, priorities are not necessarily being given to health, contracts and procurement. So, one of the things I think in the wisdom of the good Prime Minister, we've already talked to him and we've asked him to actually raise the threshold for, the threshold for National Health Department so that they have their own procurement commission, so all other things like that can actually go through easily. And in that committee, we hope to put in some international partners, development partners, so that they provide a bit of accountability and a bit more transparency so that we don't have the same issues being raised by the good member. It seems that there's a lot of issues in similar nature being addressed today at the Department of Health. So I want to assure the good member for Nipa Kutubu, I will talk to our officers there. We will get to the bottom of this and we will provide a report to you and we'll try and hold that company accountable so that if it hasn't provided those medical equipments as yet, we will ask him to do so, or we will take necessary pecuniary measures to address this issue. Thank you, Assistant Speaker.
Honourable Member for Koilala.
First time lo disla floor lo disla great house. Mi making people blomina salim congratulations blomi plagolo Prime Minister. Na deputy one time mi look savelo na plat side lo house. Opposition leader one time deputy blue you. Now all esteemed governors, ministers, na honorable members lo floor. People lo golo las congratulations golo you plagota lo disla 11th Parliament. Background question blomi by me asking golo Minister of Civil Aviation. Suppose works minister na transport can also take note. Minister, good minister, me understand osem. Gamanti rolling ma tuanpla program will call him Kadib. Na me also understand osem. Emi go past lo phase number 1 finish. Na emi now him stop lo phase number 2. Me also understand osem Tapini airstrip. Emi been capturing lo Gamanti capture him underneath lo this program. Good Minister, by way of background, all people below me heavily depend on aircrafts, both fixed wing and rotor. Only saw travel going up. At this time, as we speak, people below me depend on this light aircraft, which are operating on ad hoc. Sometimes will go inside the workshop, by come out, so that infringes or any frustrating movement of people having access to the capital city Port Moresby. While we are trying to build roads into the district, which me also on that particular point, looks how well government, looks how well people lo put in some money building road blomipla. But question blomi minister, suppose this program where Golala he captured inside this program of government, one of latest status, while you roll him up this program go to Napla country, one of latest program brought Tapini airstrip inside of this government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister for Civil Aviation.
Thank you, Assistant Speaker. I'd like to thank you, Igolong Member Blogoilala, long asking this series of questions. I look also straightforward. Loside block TVWAN and finish now. You may got one plus two plus airport or solo opim na. We're going to start focusing on TVW2. On KEDEP 2, the funding component is not as big as KEDEP 1, and it's specific on focusing on some of the airstrip, but more infrastructures that's within the aviation industry. In relation to Tapini airstrip in Goilala district being part of KEDEP 2, maybe categorized under rural airstrip category. Under KEDEP 2, there is components for rural airstrip, about 4. They haven't been identified yet. We're waiting for the agreement to sign. We're hoping that before Christmas this year will be signed, and then it'll come back to the appropriate authorities now to ascertain which rural airstrip that we will identify for the funding that's been given for those specific airstrips, or that component. So, me play stop all Sam. Member, me just like reassuring you, like other members here who has registered their interests as well, I'm happy to engage want the UPLA or identifying usatem disla fopla rural airstrip that we can actually put in under KEDEP 2, but our discussion will guide us forward. Okay? You must try to look best lo one district and we got priority, got big more need. Now you may try to prioritize him all legally past them. All right? So that's my answer to you, my good honorable member. Let's take up the discussion thereafter. Let him KEDEP 2 agreement is signed past them, and then once we know what the budget component is for rural airstrip, let's take up that discussion. Now you may try to identify which one or priority rural airstrip in Papua New Guinea will need the immediate focus. Thank you, Trum.
Honorable members, question time let me finish. Honorable Minister of Works.
Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, Assistant Speaker, I ask leave of the Parliament to move a motion without notice.
Is the leave granted? Mr. Works.
Mr. Assistant Speaker, I move that so much of the standing orders be suspended as would prevent the Minister for Transport and Civil Aviation presenting the Civil Aviation Amendment Bill 2022 being called on forthwith.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Honorable Minister.
Mr. Assistant Speaker, I present the Civil Aviation Amendment Bill 2022.
Clerk.
First reading, a bill for an act to amend the Civil Aviation Act 2000.
Minister for Transport and Civil Aviation.
Thank you, Assistant Speaker. I ask leave of the Parliament to move the second reading forthwith.
Is the leave granted? Aye. Mr. Minister.
Assistant Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a second time.
Make your speech.
Mr. Assistant Speaker, the proposed bill is to include new provisions pertaining to the absence, registration, or resignation, vacation of the office by directors, and the appointment of the managing director and the appointment of the acting managing director of the Papua New Guinea Air Service Limited and National Airport Corporation Limited boards, respectively. The Papua New Guinea Air Service Limited and National Airport Corporation Limited are entities of the state established under the Act and incorporated under the Company Act 1997, respectively. The government must make certain there are appropriate mechanisms in place to ensure entities within the civil aviation system remain compliant with aviation safety and security standards. Assistant Speaker, I commend the bill to the Parliament.
The question is the question we put. Sorry. Deputy Opposition Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, me like move was Parliament take note of the paper.
Just debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Assistant Speaker. First of all, from the opposition, people like supporting this bill or this whatever come. So there's certain questions that need to be clarified first before people can be satisfied or how much supporting this bill. First of all, Mr. Speaker, the minister has basically asked for Parliament to move Yumi accepting this might come up law appointment, law chairman, our board members, law NAC. Especially the MD, appointment of the MD. You may already say boards got power. Now, this bill, you may rouse him over the power of the board, now you may put him go underneath the one implementation. And that is the minister. We are now setting a very dangerous precedent, Mr. Speaker. Politicians now, you may come inside law operation law board members. Now the concern here, Mr. Speaker, is that the chairman is appointed by the board sit down on meeting or appoint him chairman. Now talks about minister now by talks about cabinet, or some through the prime minister, or some Mr. Chairman now is being appointed. Now you may deal with the chairman. Now you may now go down and deal one time all board members too. The directors. The directors now have to report to the minister, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, talking minister or sick or not attending meeting. Or something or must go to minister. What is the role of the chairman of the board, Mr. Speaker? Chairman now you may lose powerless because everybody in the board reports direct to the minister. Now responsibility of the board is now taken away from the chairman. Or addition, or like walk him, or go direct to minister. And where is the board here? Now plus something, Mr. Speaker, Assistant Speaker, is that now Taso, Minister talk, NAC was created through a Companies Act. And if NAC was created and registered as a company under the Companies Act, hence the appointment of the MD is by the board, not the public service. You must respect him this way. That's right. There is Company Act that gives power for the creation of NAC. And we have set a dangerous trend here in this house all members of parliament, that we must respect the operation of NAC under the Companies Act. Now suppose you may like sending him NAC now. First of all, you must rouse him all underneath the Company Act. Na kisimo kama underneath the watch full eyes blow government. That amendment must be done first. You may not can shortcut na come na walk him na something first. We must respect processes. Parliament is not here to jump over and disrespectfully walk over our citizens. The laws are created by this parliament to be respected by this parliament. Osem na disla taso mipla opposition mipla believe osem it is a dangerous trend. We're setting a wrong precedents, and we must respect the precedents, the process of appointment na all board members. No good you may walk in Lodisla board now, and we can influence other boards as well, in other organizations as well. Also, I'm little talk mipla no opposition. Also, you mean respecting process, and especially NAC is created under the Companies Act. That must be observed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister, can you explain?
Thank you, Assistant Speaker. Me just like placing some correction that's all here in relation to the Deputy Opposition Leader speaking. Me noting me clear too much long process procedure na the Act. The chairman is not appointed by the board at the current setup right now. The current law, NEC appoints the board. NEC also appoints the chairman. So, Dr. Blue, no correct to us in terms of process procedures. What we're having to do here in this relation, if you were able to look at the Act clearly, it no give absolute power. When we need to walk within or confinement, lo disla. Now, if there's those clauses that are stipulated within the amendment, I work outside of, then I'm illegal. So, absolute power also we talk. And we just give the sole sample kind jurisdiction long minister to intervene at a time that now public safety and security is at risk. And that's more important than anything else right now. So me play walk in this law, give absolute power. You may walk in where minister now he must walk within the confinement of this clause, and me not walk about other side long end. Clear? And he's binded by those clauses only. So me just like reassure him to solve opposition or some through you speaker that got big worry too much, me worry long end. Absolute power. Clear? Kind something also where we need to worry long end. It's just a minor amendments to give jurisdictions to the minister to enable to address an ongoing situation that could be detrimental to this country. Now, tasol, lodisla. Inogat. Time minister like executing duty belonging, and we must walk within the confinement, lodisla new play. I mean, not walk about our side. Something that I've been following ever since me minister na mikam. I work within the confinement lodisla law. Na tapos mi play nol kita ikila, emulsem law ito kalsem. Minister ino ka right igolong MD. Law ito kalsem. Board I work in decision law MD. Hire and fire. Okay? All right? But what happens when the board is now compromised? Yes, me use him company act pinis. Or some shareholder, 70% shareholder. Me write him pass pinis, go to board, na me talk him all, please, addressing this issue. You may got issue long. A person in a position of MD is not a fit and proper person. na mi blagat issue to lo court order to where only stay in NEC decision long install him new pla board. So emerald situation is stop also. Okay? You cannot rectify the situation right now with the current circumstance or the current law. This law allow him minister to come inside. I mean no different, you go along with not statutory bodies blow government. Not different. One kind. NEC mark him MD. NEC mark him board. No difference. So all we're trying to do now, is bring him back into line. One and more important something where jurisdiction blow minister, he can act accordingly to fix the situation instead of getting labeled in the public, walk belong in. But public, kill also jurisdiction is stopped, the minister must work within the confinement law. So I'm legally explanation, so legally correction, that's all. Now, like email get a please. This law easy. Minister by just work within the confinement of the law, and that's it, and execute his duty accordingly, as expected by the nation and everybody in this house. Thank you.
The question be put. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Question is that the bill now be read the second time. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Clerk.
Second reading. A bill for an act to amend the Civil Aviation Act 2000.
Mr. Minister.
Assistant Speaker, I ask leave of Parliament to move the third reading forthwith.
Mr. Lee Prandet. Minister.
Mr. Assistant Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a third time.
Governor Morobe.
I support him, Mr. Bill. Minister, I present him now. But me also mindful of the Tok law opposition he come on this floor. There's a big controversy established in the country, Mr. Minister, which you're aware and that this nation is aware. Some purported behavior of managing director, he make him na plenty flight he go along Natchap or he go along Kiunga or he suspend. Now this let me affect him, Mr. Speaker, and may affect him Ron Blobalus. Now it may affect him business long this country. Plenty business stop long lay, plenty businessman stop long Mosby go come every day. Long operation, long business, long all. There's a time this controversy will stop. It may affect him. It may affect him run long all businessman go come. It may affect him run long all business. And big levy stuff, Mr. Speaker. Now heavy long barrels run go come. Now place barrels by operate, pilot by operate. And may big to mass long one man. And may big to mass long the country. Now, Minister, you present him this bill, you come here, you can appreciate him. You are probably endeavoring to solve his problem. But me like him concerned, he come to this Parliament. Also, you mean going to suspend him operation from Balus? You mean again? Was that man come inside long operate also? Chiefs get him up sub long, this like NHC or Usat must be very considerate and much serious. Long tini blong and lopat and blong. Long operation blow balus, he go come. Long all of the place balus in the country. Very serious. It's important transportation. Belong development, belong country. Now, really go come belong all people, citizens of the country. Now, this is a controversy. I mean, making this play, giving big play heavy. More than big play province, now me must travel go come. Almost every week, me must come to most people attend because all the government department stop to most people. All the stop on lay. Now, me must come here. Don't talk to one prime minister, one all minister, all departmental heads. Now, we must go come. Now, if you should cut down the operation, don't put him stop and me affect him. Now, me like him talk sorry or saying, whatever action that is taken, people must be seriously in serious consideration. Belong operation, belong air transport, now movement belong people, now development belong the country. And it's very important. Also, the minister, I can see that you're trying to make sure that that problem is remedied. On that basis, I support you. But have due consideration to the point that the opposition leader is raising. We don't try to establish a precedent that will affect other boards, right, which are established by an act of parliament. We don't try to come up with an amendment which will jeopardize or which will lay down the precedent for other people to use it to make amendments to the detriment of the operation of those departments. And the opposition's concern is indeed genuine. Is it indeed genuine? So, Mr. Speaker, I want to impress on the author of the bill, the minister, that whatever we do, whatever amendment that we endeavor to have it passed through this parliament, must not serve for private interest. I'm not saying, Minister, your own interest. I'm not saying that. Make sure that that is not done to, that act is not used to save the interest of whoever that is trying to make a decision. No, it must be saved the interest of this country. The interest of this country is paramount. Paramount. And that is why, Minister, I hope that you have a genuine mind and genuine heart to have this matter sorted out. Because I don't want the blockades. The plane wants to take off and somebody gets a bulldozer, somebody gets an excavator and place it in the runway. This is totally unacceptable. And there is an attempt, there was an attempt. Mr. Blo, please let me hear him talk. Aye, no mania. Mr. Speaker, all no got country to level blong. Every leader must got country to level blong. We said man me play mark him all. All must got country long lewa blong all. And but it's like all operation blame me by Ron Good, country by service law country by come up good pla. Air transport must come up good pla. Sea transport must come up good pla. Road transport by come up good pla. All man walk about go come too by good pla. Mr. Speaker. So Mr. Assistant Speaker, I right to support the minister, but it must have no ulterior motives except for the interests of this country. And Mr. Speaker, Assistant Speaker, this bill must be supported without any reservation.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me opportunity long stand up or talk in support of Minister of Civil Aviation and me current display amendment the camp. Long you may repeal him PNG Air Services Limited, PNG New Sky Pacific Limited. Tupla company blow state operate under the Law Companies Act. However, this amendment he come behind him thinking law belong regulatory statutory or law belong country long you may try sanity more sambla law long reporting structure belong all. One of you been looking recently, and the Minister for Civil Aviation, he experienced him. And in this instance, Tupla company, law civil aviation sector, but you may get some law state company too. Only operates sub law, all not law agency law state, and also our state-owned enterprises. I think our government is really looking at the reporting structure. Ultimately, these are state companies, state agencies. The place for the residual accountability comes back to the National Parliament. You may look him sometime go finish. Public Accounts Committee let's scrutinize him work long Kumul Petroleum. But Kumul Petroleum to me company me no report long me no got right long you scrutinizing work lo me. But ML company plus state. There should be some reporting structure where whilst all maintaining workflow laws and all independent and company at almost arm's length, but ultimately this house and the government has its fiduciary responsibility to make them accountable to the people through this parliament process. So we appreciate the debacle at National Airport Corporation that exposed one weakness we've been carrying so long, where cabinet and the minister had little control over the MD because the MD was appointed by the board. And that process needs to be tidied, so there's a responsible pathway of being accountable, ultimately to the people through this accountability conduit or pathway and hierarchy. The minister is not subsuming all powers back to himself. The minister is guided by the totality of the act that governs the way he operates and responds to the companies below him. But you may look in Islam amendment, he bringing back appointment process for board, he come lo cabinet, and the appointment process belong managing director to through the due process belong merit, independence of selection, but by God, this process come back lo cabinet long minister current recommendation as all sambla statutory bodies where organized statutory bodies where 3+ shortlist cabinets are deciding. In this instance, there was a slip in the current process where NAC operate under the full Companies Act process. Now, both the soul, you got process la appointment belong all now. If you have someone who wants to maintain the status quo through many of the processes, then it seemed as if the government or the minister or the parliament was helpless. And this is a correction process, whilst it may be targeting the civil aviation sector in this instance, but Mila giving barely seal of parliament. Now, Mipla as a whole of government to look this gray area where ML state company and all feel of some all got accountability come people through the parliament process. And as you like thinking, not too long ago, where Public Accounts Committee like look long walk long some state-owned enterprises, and they felt that they are totally independent from the scrutiny process. And we are reconciling this without compromising the independence of these important organizations to function, but give this added layer of scrutiny. So when there is a national issue at stake, then ultimately the government process is able to handle at different layers of authority that is dispensed with through our constitutional process and all our other subsidiary laws that govern all these bodies. So it is not directly targeting at the event, but we realized we carried a deficiency in the present law, and we're trying to fill in this gap. But me like talking Parliament, Mr. Assistant Speaker, through you, that we are also looking into this space. Along some state companies you may got, whether state companies or some National Housing Estate Limited, NHC relationship, or even all SOE companies outside process law appointment law board. Now appointment belong managing directors could be responsive to the process where cabinet ultimately up at the top, given the benefit of having an oversight. And Mr. Assistant Speaker, Mila Assurim country, today we've tidied this space with all our state-owned enterprises. The process has been cleaned and cleared. Where merit-based appointment process kick in, only go through the selection process from an independent process at arm's length. Then ultimately, triple name come to cabinet through the minister, and then we make a pick, and then we make the appointment. But there's a direct relationship in a line of sight from cabinet down to the MD. Cabinet, minister, board, MD. That relationship, been complete long the NAC process. Even got cabinet, minister, and board, but MD and work underneath the display level. And we just want to correct this. Down the line, we'll expand the scope of investigation so that every other state company may make him display without compromising the independence of the appointment process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Apau.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My view, Honourable Assistant Speaker, that the intentions are honourable, but the structure as per the draft amendments is not consistent with the intentions. Let me point one area. In this amendment, section 143D, 2, which reads, the minister may at any time, by written notice, advise a director that he intends to terminate the appointment of that director on the ground, etc., etc. The minister is now given the power to terminate any director of the board. So, Honorable Assistant Speaker, I think we have a mismatch. The intention is right, but the letter of the law is not bringing that intention. We have always talked about fit and proper person's appointment on any SOE. That has been the conversation all along. But our problem has been the politicization. We talk about arm's length, but this is not arm's length. Which director in the right mind can accept the responsibility when the same minister is given the power to remove them at any time by just written notice? I have problems with this one, Mr. Assistant Speaker. And so I strongly recommend for us to relook at this. The intentions are right, but the letter of the law is not there. Thank you, Mr. Assistant Speaker.
Honorable Minister for Education.
Thank you, Assistant Speaker. I think this is some of the important points to raise, but Mila raise three points long. And first, Mila Luglulo, this is amendments for Minister Sikkim, 143G. This amendment you look at me put him chairman, deputy chairman. Also, Mila clarify some of the point. Me RM deputy leader representing the regime that told some no good minister by appointing board or chairman. No, this lakan. You look him this amendment. Me show him also Prime Minister explaining prison to him in normal long organization organization that then may come to the cabinet. So that is reflected right here in this clause, law 143G. Now, long management, how the management may come up, appointment that come up, but you look him along section 143E, 1-2, now subsection A, B, but you look him the regulatory statutory authorities act me appointed management. So here, Minister Emino Kaminsel management, also me RM Debris leader talk also Minister Naka Kaminsel long management level or boardroom. Definitely this amendment, support him this thing where opposition erase him. When him opposition erase him, reflect the law, so me read him law here law section because me like in public look sabe also misconstrued understanding. Now the point where member about erase him, Mr. Assistant Speaker, you look at minister long all state organizations, minister is sabe appoint him. Recommend him along NEC, all board members. For instance, in the area that I'm responsible for, the Act allows the minister to make recommendations of people on the council. So I get the CVs of people, those that with the advice of the department, we see that they're capable people, we make recommendations to the appointment of these people. So what is reflected here in that particular clause that I think the member for Abao has raised is consistent to what is taking place in some, because ministers do appoint board members, and that is appointed authority. The third point I'd like to raise, Mr. Assistant Speaker, is the current situation. I would like to say that the management, especially the managing director and his team of management who have acted or conducted themselves in the way they have done is absolutely, I must say from this, not as I'm saying, but from the pace of all Papua New Guineans, is unacceptable, cannot be tolerated, and cannot be perpetrated and perpetuated.
it must be stopped. I think the management, the MD plus the others should openly apologize, and they must resign to cleanse themselves that what they've done is a very bad thing for Papua New Guinea, in that they've detrimented the lives and security, the safety of people, and they've in fact killed some business activities because of the shutdown we have seen at the airport for 2 or 3 days. I'd like to tell them this is wrong. We should not do this. That shows truly that those people who are occupying the management positions, they have a conflict of interest. Their conduct truly shows and illustrates the fact that there probably could be people not fit and proper to occupy the position they hold, because the conduct speaks for itself. If they were selfless, if they were for Papua New Guineans, then they would not have acted the way they did. Therefore, these amendments would not have been necessary. But because they have detrimented the business, the lives, the safety and security, therefore the government, as a responsible government, must do things to take control of the situation, or else you'll see this nonsense continue to perpetuate into the future. So, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to urge opposition and the member of Abao, and I think the points raised by the governor for Morobe, that these amendments are in order, in the best interest of national interest. We should support it. It is not in the interest of a minister or of a Marape Rosso government. It is in the interest of the nation that we have experienced together. But those points can be taken. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, absent member for Hiri Koyari.
Acting Speaker, I'd like to shed some light on the views shared by my learned member for Abao, Sir Honorable Pukatemu. My views are that the analysis of Section 143, capital D, which would be the new provision of the CAA Act, I beg to differ respectfully in this instance. The discretion bestowed on the minister under subsection 2, which says the minister may. Now, may is the operative word. It is a discretion by virtue of the usage of the word may upon the minister to exercise this discretion. Of course, will be exercised sparingly to exercise a certain privilege or a right to terminate or recommend for termination. The entire provision must be read in its entirety. The subsequent provisions, subsections 3, subsections 4, subsections 5, create that avenue for natural justice to be applied to the respective director. This is a director of the board. A director then has an opportunity to, within 7 days, respond to the notice issued by the minister. If the minister is satisfied that the explanations are sufficient, then he will he still reserves the right to accept the explanation and continue the continuity. If in the event that the explanations fall short of sufficient, then he will recommend to the appointing authority to terminate that tenure, in which event a consequential event kicks in, which is the special interest group that recommends or put this director on replaces. There is no room for a vacuum. The law does not contemplate a vacuum in this instance. This also is independent of the provision for a managing director. This is not to be confused. Section 143 Cap D relates to directors of the board. The proposed Section 143E relates also independently to managing directors. In the case of managing director, the same natural justice is applied. These are principles and hallmarks of good governance and good law. With this explanation, I submit, and I would urge the House to accept these amendments, considering, let's not be naive to the recent events and the continuing fiasco in this country relating to the safety of the general public in aviation. I think Papua New Guinea has a good record so far. Let's try to employ every endeavor to maintain that record and employ every endeavor to push the boundaries to make sure that our safety standards are critical and should not be gambled. We must not gamble with the lives of ordinary Papua New Guineans and traveling public. And so this, I must commend and congratulate the Minister for Transport and Civil Aviation for taking up this expeditious reaction. It is not a knee-jerk reaction, but one that is, I submit, very well thought out, and the draftsman has reflected those intentions very, very clearly. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Question is still the question be put. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Minister. So, the question is that bill now be read at that time. Clerk.
Third reading, a bill for an act to amend the Civil Aviation Act 2000.
Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I ask leave of Parliament to move a motion without notice.
Is the leave granted? Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I move that so much of the standing orders be suspended as would prevent A, the Minister for Treasury presenting the 2023 budget and associated budget papers, and B, the Appropriation General Public Service Expenditure 2023 Bill, Appropriation Judiciary Services 2023 Bill 2022, and Appropriation National Parliament 2023 Bill 2022 be presented together and debated as one, and C, separate questions be put on the second and third readings.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Treasurer.
Mr. Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, I present the A, Appropriation, General Public Service Expenditure 2022 Bill 2022, B, Appropriation, National Parliament 2023 Bill 2022, and C, Appropriation, Judiciary Services 2023 Bill 2022.
Mr. Clerk.
First readings. Appropriation General Public Services Expenditure 2023 Bill 2022. A bill for an act to appropriate out of the Consolidated Revenue Fund a sum for the General Public Service for operational and capital investment expenditure for the year ending 31 December 2023. 2. Appropriation National Parliament 2023 Bill 2022. A bill for an act to appropriate out of the Consolidated Revenue Fund a sum for the National Parliament for operational and capital investment expenditure for the year ending 31 December 2023. 3. Appropriation Judiciary Services 2023 Bill 2022. A bill for an act to appropriate out of the Consolidated Revenue Fund sums for the judiciary services, operational and capital investment expenditure for the year ending 31 December 2023.
Mr. Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bills be now read together a second time.
Make a speech.
Mr. Speaker, I am honoured to present the 2023 budget to this Parliament. This government was re-elected on a platform to make this a fairer and more economically independent country. Our Prime Minister has committed to ensure that no place and no one will be left behind as we develop and grow this country in a more sustainable way. Mr. Speaker, I am proud that this budget implements this vision. Our budget context for next year's budget: once again, our proud country is having to sail through choppy international waters. The world outlook is, and I quote, gloomy and uncertain, at least according to the IMF. Rising global inflation, rising global interest rates, falling growth rates, and a war in Ukraine that continues. But today I don't wish to be gloomy. PNG is doing much better than most other countries. The real growth rate in our non-resource economy is recovering well. Real growth rates of 4.8% in 2021, 4.5% in 2022, and 4.6% next year. This is only the second time in our history that we have had 3 years in a row of such growth of over 4%. Employment is growing. Inflation is falling and expected to be under 6% next year. Foreign exchange reserves are expected to reach about 13 billion kina, the highest level in our history. We thank our people for their resilience in contributing to such a good economic performance. We are proud of the contribution of our better economic management, while humbly acknowledging that there is still more to be done. We also thank our international partners today for their extremely strong support. We are committed to this international engagement and will be considering further support through an IMF program starting next year to back our own economic reforms. Our economic vision. This is the first budget after the re-election of our Pangu-led government. This 2023 budget will ensure our Pangu vision shines through, especially economic independence, focused on our rural people. The budget overview. Mr. Speaker, this budget continues to deliver on fixing a budget that was so badly broken under the PNC. Someone sitting opposite who in just a few short years exploded debt fourfold while somehow being able to build his own mansions and business empires. Mr. Speaker, this budget is the largest in our country's history.
Treasurer, Mr. Treasurer, I think you withdrawn the latest statement you could let Thomas the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I withdraw. Mr. Speaker, this budget is the largest in our country's history. Total expenditure will be 24.5 billion kina, a 10.8% increase on our original 2022 budget. This is the largest investment in our people's future in the history of our nation. Total revenues will be another record estimate of 19.5 billion kina, a 20.9% increase on 2022. Revenue growth of 20.9% is nearly twice as fast as expenditure growth of 10.8%. This is a responsible outcome. It means our budget deficit falls. Mr. Speaker, the 2023 budget delivers a billion kina reduction in the size of our deficit, down from 5.9 billion this year to 4.9 billion next year. Our budget deficit has nearly halved since the global COVID-19 pandemic did so much damage to our budget back in 2022, down from a deficit of 8.6% of the economy to today's 4.4% projected next year. And this responsible Marape Rosso government will ensure that this figure keeps falling. We are committed. Down to 3.3% in 2024, down again to 2.7% in 2025, and down to 1.3% in 2026, and then impressively back into a surplus by our target date of 2027. This will be a good day for our children and their future. We can finally start paying off our debts or making other investment choices once we get back to surplus. This is all part of the 13-year plan, our 13-year plan to get our budget books back into order and to stop building up debt. On law and order, Mr. Speaker, this government has targeted 5 key priority areas. The first priority is law and order. This budget delivers an extra 401 million kina into our law and order sector. This is the largest increase in funding in our history. This is an increase of 28.9%. I was delighted, actually, to see police paid advertisements in weekend newspapers for a further 500 recruits and 60 extra officer positions recently. We have committed ongoing funding to the police to continue this level of recruitment. We will lift the size of the police force from 5,000 in 2022 to over 7,000 by 2026. Mr. Speaker, we are providing a 50% increase in funding for the judiciary, increasing funding from 154 million to 232 million next year, before a planned increase to 310 million, which they're requesting for 2024. Major increases also for our magistrates, we haven't forgotten them, for our public prosecutor, for ICAC, for the Ombudsman Commission, and for the Constitutional and Law Reform Commission. The Marape Rosso government implementing its vision for a better and safer Papua New Guinea. On infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, one of the transformations of this government has been the dramatic rebalancing of our budget. For too long, there has been a lack of significant and consistent infrastructure development. I am pleased to announce that the 2023 budget allocates 9.7 billion kina to invest in our roads, our ports, our airways, and in our schools and hospitals, and in our power and water supplies. Of this, 6.6 billion kina will be provided under PNG's own public investment program, or PIP, which is supported with a further 3.1 billion kina in international support. The 6.6 billion kina in our own PIP programs is a historic allocation. When we inherited this budget, only 2,041 million, or 2 billion kina, was spent on the PIP in 2018. In only 4 years, we have increased funding by over 4,400 million, or 4.4 billion kina. I repeat, an extra 4.4 billion kina invested in our infrastructure in 2023 alone. An extraordinary increase of 224%, yet responsibly delivered within a budget repair program. Mr. Speaker, the Marape Rosso government is the infrastructure government. But the massive increase in funding tells only part of the story, because the investments are being done smarter. The investments are being driven by the needs of our rural sectors. The focus is on roads to markets and not roads to nowhere. The focus is on devolved decision-making to ensure that the roads are best used according to local priorities. Mr. Speaker, in a move to ensure that no province or district is left behind in this massive infrastructure boost, we are investing 960 million kina for our district infrastructure program. This is historic. More than double the level of funds that were allocated in 2021. On top of this, we are also allocating 220 million to the provincial infrastructure program. 1.1 billion kina for infrastructure at the local level. Moving the focus from the national level to the local level also creates local jobs and local contracts, all in line with local priorities. We are going rural. Mr. Speaker, still at the heart of our infrastructure boom is the PNG Connect program, our visionary signature policy to link all corners of our country. This program has been guaranteed a minimum of 5.6% of our budget. Across the PIP and loan and grant funding, this has been delivered with total funding of over 1.3 billion kina. The Marape Rosso government delivers again on its campaign promises. On education and health, Mr. Speaker, this government has already massively increased funding for the health and education sectors. Much of this has been focused on improving facilities, especially with large investments in hospitals. The 2023 budget provides nearly 400 million kina to support increases of at least 5% growth per annum in the number of workers in these sectors through to 2027. After that, funding is provided for increases of 10% per annum. No longer just targets in a medium-term plan, but actual funding within sustainable financial framework of our 13-year plan. Let me be more specific. It is estimated that this program will allow the number of teachers to grow from 59,307 in 2022 to 79,297 by 2027. A funded increase in provincial administrations for 20,000 new teachers. This is a growth of over 30% over these 5 years, significantly faster than the expected growth in student numbers of around 20%. This means improved student-teacher ratios and hopefully, if cleverly backed by other policy changes, better educational outcomes. This funded policy is expected to support over 125 teachers by 2032. A similar funding approach has been taken for health services, building on the transformation last year of moving church health workers onto the government payroll system. Healthcare workers are expected to increase from 21,738 in 2022 to 29,065 by 2027 and 46,703 by 2032. Mr. Speaker, let me be clear on this extra funding. This is only made possible because of very focused priority setting. Major increases for people on the front line delivering services, but zero growth in public service numbers in other areas. It's all about getting the right balance. In goods and services expenditure, the focus on key priorities has even tougher implications. Priority areas received increases, core central agencies reduced by 5%, and other agencies will also be reduced. These are tough decisions, and there will be some unhappy civil servants in Waigani. But with limited funds, we have to reprioritise spending to reflect our mandated policy platforms during the last election. On agriculture and the economic sector, Mr. Speaker, the creation of new agriculture ministries is a clear demonstration of the Marape Rosso government's policy commitments to refocus government priority on the agriculture sector and other rural industries. 2 resource sector ministers, now 4 agriculture ministers, a much better balance for our country. These new ministers are supported by sector-based commodity boards. I am pleased funding for each one of these has been increased substantially. Major increases in funding for the Fresh Produce Development Company, for the PNG Coffee Industry Corporation, for the National Agriculture Research Institute, for the PNG Cocoa Board, for Coconut Industry Corporation, and providing $2.6 million in funding for the new Livestock and Development Corporation. Overall, we have increased funding for the economic sector by $71.8 million to $989.3 million. This is indeed a major investment to support growth in rural incomes, implementing the vision. Our 2023 Household Assistance Package. Mr. Speaker, this government knows that prices for some key items have gone up significantly over the last year, especially fuel, cooking oil, rice, and for our farmers, fertilizer costs. For the first time in PNG's history, the Marape government developed a household assistance package to help address some of these cost of living pressures. There was nothing similar by the former government, as the drought and frosts of 2015-16 pushed inflation to even higher levels back then and more than being faced today. This is a caring, responsible and responsive government. Today, I announce a further package of 590 million kina in cost of living relief. This includes tax cuts of up to 63 kina per fortnight for those earning more than 20,000 kina per year for 2023, a very serious increase in take-home pay for workers. We will do this by temporarily lifting the tax-free threshold to 20,000 kina at a cost of 280 million kina. 150 million kina will be provided for reducing fuel prices. All excise taxes on fuels will be removed through to 30th of June next year. As international oil prices have fallen substantially from their peak, the GST exemption will cease. This will keep petrol prices down by about 61 toya per litre and diesel prices down by 23 toya per litre. 160 million kina is allocated for removing school project fee costs in 2023. This is a particularly important measure to get assistance out to rural areas and families, many of whom do not have a car or a job earning more than 20,000 kina per annum. The total cost is 590 million kina. All forecasts indicate that inflation will fall in 2023 back to under 6%. The government will continue reviewing the situation, and if inflation in fact increases more than expected, we will consider doing more, as long as it is consistent with our budget repair program. Mr. Speaker, in line with this government's focus on fighting inflation, we are acutely aware of the uncertainties in the global economy. Aggregate levels of expenditure will be kept under review to ensure that they do not add to inflationary pressures and provide fiscal stability in the medium term. This is a critical element of our macroeconomic framework, ensuring our fiscal strategy does not add to inflationary pressures. In addition, if there is a more dramatic drop in oil prices than expected and key resource revenues are unlikely to be realized, then aggregate expenditure levels will also be reviewed. On revenue measures, Mr. Speaker, I have already covered two major revenue measures: a 280 million cut in personal income taxes and a 150 million cut in fuel taxes. But we simply cannot cut taxes alone. The development needs of Papua New Guinea means that we must also grow our revenue. This budget introduces the Non-Tax Revenue Administration Bill. The implementation of this bill is expected to collect more than 550 million kina in 2023. This restores the key budget principle that revenue raised by government agencies should come back to government for prioritization in the budget process. Consistent with the objective of stopping round log exports and to continue encouraging downstream manufacturing, this budget builds on the 2020 budget measure to increase taxes on round log exports. A further 20% increase is added to the 50% increase in 2020. The expected 30 million kina in revenues from this increase is allocated to a PNG United Nations Biodiversity and Climate Change Trust Fund. We expect that this will be seed funding and attract much greater levels of international funding support as part of our targeted grants strategy. Mr. Speaker, following consultations, we have decided to change the form of the tax introduced on the banking sector in 2022. From 1st of January 2023, the rate of company tax payable by commercial banks will increase from 30 to 45%. This is expected to raise 240 million kina in 2023, funding vital core services. We will consult closely with the banking industry in the first half of next year and consider if a different type of tax, such as an additional profits tax, may be more appropriate from 2024 onwards, while still raising the required revenue. Mr. Speaker, social drinks are a curse on our society's youth. We acted on this in our 2020 budget with major increases in taxes on social drinks of over 400%. We are acting on this again by closing down loopholes being exploited by some unscrupulous operators, with a 493% tax on a wider range of social drinks. On our path forward, Mr. Speaker, I have outlined how the 2023 budget is delivering on the Marape Rosso government's vision, especially the path forward for increased economic independence. Continuing this vision has three vital components. First, we must continue with ongoing budget repair to a surplus by our target date of 2027. We cannot be economically independent if we continue to rely on international budget support assistance, even when from good international partners. This will involve some tough choices in 2024. As we frame this budget, we have decided to fully allocate extra resource revenues to increased investments and further household relief, rather than a sovereign wealth fund or other saving options. We are aware that means 2024 expenditures are expected to be below the estimated levels of 2023, with particularly larger cuts for the capital budget. Of course, this approach will be adapted depending on developments in the international and domestic economies over the next year. We may push some expenditures to 2024 if deemed necessary to manage inflationary pressures on macroeconomic stability. We will remain a responsive and responsible government. Second, we need to continue microeconomic reform efforts for increasing jobs and growing incomes. Our businesses are clear that we must fix foreign exchange shortages, a foolish home goal from 2014. Fixing this problem is why our key business reform has focused on modernizing our central bank. We will continue to work with the IMF and other international partners to return to a freely convertible kina. We will implement the policies and make investments to get back to real non-resource growth of at least 5% per annum, as we did under the great late Grand Chief. Third, and finally, we must strengthen our key institutions. This includes ongoing support for our Special Parliamentary Committee on Public Sector Reforms, chaired by Governor Juffa, supporting the new Parliamentary Committee on Election Reforms chaired by Governor Bird, continuing support fighting corruption through establishing a strong ICAC, but without depleting resources for the Ombudsman Commission, better service delivery with more accountability, and more performance orientation in key agencies. Therefore, Treasury wishes to announce that Cabinet endorsement will be sought for a comprehensive public sector expenditure review examining whether we are spending our monies in the best possible ways. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, this is the first budget after the re-election of the Pangu-led government. The 2023 budget implements our vision. This is a responsible budget of ongoing repair with a further reduction in our budget deficit by $1 billion kina. Another decisive step to a budget surplus by our target date of 2027. This is a budget that focuses on the key Pangu-led government priorities. Over 400 million kina extra for police and the judiciary, the largest and most significant investment into our law and order sector in our history. Over 400 million kina for more police, teachers, doctors and nurses, not just an empty promise, but a promise backed by full funding contained in our 13-year plan. 1.1 billion kina for a major expansion in our provincial and district infrastructure programs. Going local and ensuring no province and no district is left behind. Over 1.3 billion kina in new investment for the transformative PNG Connect program. And within these long-term structural and investment policies, 590 million kina in temporary support for households to help deal with cost of living pressures. Implementing the vision, all within our available resources. Visionary, responsible, focused on all regions, focused on leaving no one behind, focused on investments for our children's future. I commend the 2023 budget to the Parliament. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Shadow Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I move that debates on the appropriation bill be adjourned and made orders of the day for a subsequent sitting.
The question is that the debate be adjourned. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I present the Non-Tax Revenue Administration Bill 2022.
Mr. Clark.
A bill for an act to regularize the handling and management of non-tax revenue received by public and statutory bodies and for related purposes.
Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a second time.
Make your speech.
Mr. Speaker, this bill proposes the introduction of a new bill called Non-Tax Revenue Administration. The government introduced the Public Money Management Regularization PMMR Act 2017 in the 2018 budget. The purpose of the PMMR Act was to bring all non-tax revenue collection into our Consolidated Revenue Fund to support the budget and allow all government agencies to be funded through the normal budget process. However, in May 2020, the Supreme Court declared the PMMR Act unconstitutional and nullified its implementation. As a result, the non-tax revenues were not remitted to our Consolidated Revenue Fund, but withheld by our state agencies and statutory bodies. This significantly reduced the government's revenue collections. The government, in close consultation with the relevant agencies, has developed the Non-Tax Revenue Administration Bill. The introduction of the NTRA Bill is to continue the good work of mobilizing non-tax revenue that the then PMMR Act had initiated. The bill rectified the technical errors and defects of the PMMR Act. The implementation of this bill is expected to collect more than 550 million kina next year and continue to increase the non-tax revenue collections over time. Mr. Speaker, I commend the bill.
Shadow Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the debate be adjourned and made an order of the day for a subsequent sitting.
The question is that the debate be adjourned. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I present the Customs Tariff 2023 Budget Amendment Bill 2022.
Mr. Clark.
First reading, a bill for an act to amend the Customs Tariff Act 1990.
Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a second time.
Make a speech.
Mr. Speaker, this bill proposes an amendment to increase the log export duty by 20%. The increase is in line with government intention to discourage the export of unprocessed logs and encourage downstream processing by 2025. The proposal is expected to generate 30 million kina as additional government revenues in 2023. The expected additional revenue will be earmarked to support the newly established Biodiversity and Climate Trust Fund created by the United Nations for Papua New Guinea. The aims to establish PNG's credibility in financing for protected areas. This is considered as then providing a demonstrated PNG commitment to the fund, which should be able to gear up more significant contributions from other international organizations, countries, and international NGOs. The measure is expected to come into effect on the 1st of January 2023. Mr. Speaker, I commend the bill.
Shadow Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the debate be adjourned and made an order of the day for a subsequent sitting.
The question is that the debate be adjourned. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I present the Excise Tariff 2023 Budget Amendment Bill 2022.
Mr. Clerk.
First reading, a bill for an act to amend the Excise Tariff Act 1956, Chapter 107.
Minister of Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a second time.
Make your speech.
Mr. Speaker, this bill continues the suspension of the excise duty on diesel, petrol and Zoom products for a further 6 months starting on the 1st of January 2023 and ends on the 30th of June of the same year. The proposal will continue to address the high prices of fuel products and cost of goods and services that individuals, families and businesses are facing. This bill also imposes a 493% one-off increase in the excise rate for the ready-to-drink mixed drinks with high alcohol content. The measure aims to combat antisocial behaviour resulting from the consumption of these ready-mixed alcohols and also to raise government revenue. This measure is expected to come into effect on the 1st of December 2022. Mr. Speaker, I commend the bill.
Shadow Minister for Treasury.
That the debate be adjourned and made an order of the day for a subsequent sitting.
The question is that the debate be adjourned. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I present the income tax, dividend withholding tax and interest withholding tax rates 2022 Budget Amendment Bill 2022.
Mr. Clerk.
First reading, a bill for an act to amend the income tax, dividend withholding tax and interest withholding tax rates 1984.
Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a second time.
Make your speech.
Mr. Speaker, this bill proposes to reduce the income tax payable for everyone earning more than 12,500 kina. This measure will exempt income tax payable for everyone earning up to 20,000 kina. For all taxpayers earning 20,000 or higher, they will have 63 kina more in their fortnightly pay to help meet some of their cost of living pressures. This is going over and above the measure enacted in 2022, this year, which lifted the threshold to 17,500 until 31st of December this year. This bill also introduces our new corporate income tax rate of 45% for commercial licensed banks. Mr. Speaker, I commend the bill.
Shadow Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the debate be adjourned and made an order of the day for a subsequent sitting.
The question is that the debate be adjourned. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Treasurer, hold him past them. Mobile phone will ring.
All attendants attend to it. Minister Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I present the income tax, salary and wages tax rates 2023 budget amendment bill 2023.
Mr. Clerk.
First reading, a bill for an act to amend the Income Tax, Salary and Wages Tax Rates Act 1979.
Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a second time.
Make your speech.
Mr. Speaker, this bill is a complementary legislation on the relief to address our imported inflation issues. This amendment raises the income tax threshold from 12,500 to 20,000 kina from 1st of January 2023 and ending 31st of December of the same year. This measure will exempt income tax payable for everyone earning up to 20,000 kina. There will be a marginal benefit for all taxpayers earning 20,000 kina or higher. Mr. Speaker, I commend the bill.
Shadow Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the debate be adjourned and made an order of the day for a subsequent sitting.
The question is that the debate be adjourned. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I present the Income Tax 2023 Budget Amendment Bill 2022.
Mr. Clerk.
First reading, a bill for an act to amend the Income Tax Act 1959.
Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a second time.
Make your speech.
Mr. Speaker, this bill proposes an amendment to correct an oversight whereby the market concentration levy was not formally repealed with the introduction of the additional company tax earlier. It is a duplication that needs to be legally corrected. It also includes a sunset clause to end the additional company tax for the banking sector. Transitional provisions are included to save and preserve any existing action, arbitration or court proceeding challenging the validity of the tax. Mr. Speaker, I commend the bill.
Shadow Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the debate be adjourned and made an order of the day for a subsequent sitting.
The question is that the debate be adjourned. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I present the Customs Tariff Amendment Bill 2022.
Mr. Clerk.
First reading, a bill for an act to amend the Customs Tariff Act 1990.
Mr. Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a second time.
Make your speech.
Mr. Speaker, this bill proposes an amendment to the Customs Tariff Act of 1990 to update the PNG Customs Harmonised System from HS 2017 to HS 2022 to improve administration of goods traded domestically and internationally, and to be on par with the rest of the world. This measure will be revenue neutral and is expected to be effective retrospective to 1st of January 2022 to enhance trade facilitation. Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill.
Shadow Minister for Treasury.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the debate be adjourned and be made order of the day for a subsequent sitting.
The question is that the debate be adjourned. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no.
Okay.
The ayes have it. Honourable members, I wish to inform the Parliament that pursuant to Section 91 of the Constitution, the Governor-General holds office for a term of 6 years from the date of his assumption of office. The current Governor-General took the oath of allegiance, made his declaration of loyalty and the declaration of office before the Chief Justice and in the presence of Parliament on 28 February 2017. Therefore, his term of office will expire on 28 February 2023. In accordance with Section 88, subsection 3 of the Constitution, the Parliament may elect a nominee at any time within the period of 3 months before the completion of the normal term of office of the Governor-General. Therefore, pursuant to the requirements of the organic law on the nomination of the Governor-General, I now fix Thursday, 19 January 2023, for the conduct of an exhaustive secret ballot to decide a person to be nominated by Parliament to fill the imminent vacancy. Honourable members, under the organic law, in order to nominate, a nomination must be in the prescribed form, and these forms can be obtained from the clerk's office. The nomination form must contain the signature or mark of 1, the proposer who shall be a member of Parliament, and 2, the person proposed as accepting the nomination, and 3, not less than 15 other members of Parliament. A member of Parliament can only propose one person as a candidate for election as Parliament's nominee. A member of Parliament can only support one candidate and cannot support any other candidate or be a proposer for another candidate. The completed forms must be handed to the Clerk of Parliament no later than 12:30 p.m. on Tuesday, 28 December 2022. Under Section 5 of the Organic Law, the clerk may reject a proposal for nomination where 1, the proposal is not in the prescribed form, or 2, the proposal is not signed by at least 15 members of Parliament, or 3, he has reasonable cause to believe and does believe the person nominated is not qualified for appointment as Governor-General. Honourable members, a number of decided cases in the Supreme Court has clearly defined the roles and functions of the clerk in conducting the election process for the Governor-General and the specific requirements under law in relation to proposal forms. In view of the Supreme Court's decision, the requirements I referred to above are clarified as follows. A member must state the correct name of his or her electorate and also sign on the appropriate column in the proposal form. A list of members' electorates will be circulated for the benefit of members. Members will note that they are required to insert the proper name of the electorate. For example, Northern Provincial is not Oro Provincial. West Sepik Provincial is not Sundown Provincial. And similarly, Chimbu Provincial is not Simbu Provincial. B, a member cannot propose more than one candidate. C, a proposer of a candidate cannot also sign as a supporter of that candidate or another candidate. D, no member is allowed to support more than one candidate. E, a proposal can only be made with the consent of the person proposed. The person proposed must consent to have his name put before the Parliament for voting. He does this by affixing his name, signature, or mark on the proposal form in the designated space. He must not write his name. F, a supporter or proposer cannot withdraw their support or proposal. A member who has supported or proposed a candidate cannot later withdraw their support or proposal. In the view of the Supreme Court decision, this would be the equivalent of making a mockery of the process and demeaning the high office of the Governor General. The clerk has no powers to entertain such a withdrawal. Failure to follow these specific requirements will invalidate all proposal forms. The organic law also makes provisions for proposal forms to be handed to the clerk at any time before the commencement of voting. However, as a matter of good administrative practice and taking into account the court's interpretation of the organic law, proposal forms should be submitted to the clerk in sufficient time to allow him to scrutinize the forms and make informed decisions on some of the requirements under the organic law. Should the clerk decide to reject the proposal for nomination, such a time frame also allows an aggrieved person sufficient time to appeal to the National Court against that decision. Honourable members, if we all comply with these requirements, I expect no more than 6 proposals to be in the clerk's office by 12:30 p.m. on Tuesday, 28 December 2022, which will be the closing date for nomination. Honourable members, I now call for nominations. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Thank him. Leaders on this side and leaders on that side, Treasurer want them. Shadow Treasurer, Minister Blimil or tabling budget. Me thank him. All media want them more line become a budget lockup, including our media that's observing Parliament today. Me thank him. Clerk want them or team blame. Want them, Mr. Speaker, me move that you may join in Parliament go tomorrow 10 a.m.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Honourable members, Parliament now is adjourned to 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
It's already beyond. Adjourned already.